Hey guys, welcome back to FBT. We're on episode 40. Very happy to have retired MMA legend Chris Lytle on the show. He's one of the most exciting fighters to ever do it and step in the cage. 54 MMA fights and never been knocked out or submitted. That is like a crazy achievement in itself. Chris, you want to say hi to the listeners?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on. I want to congratulate you on having this being your 40th episode. That's quite a bit right there. So a lot of good work for you. One more thing I'd like to touch on when you were doing that. To be honest with you, I think I've had more than 54 fights. It's funny because when I started fighting back in 1998, they didn't really keep internet records very well. And come to find out, like they wouldn't really put any of my fights on there that they considered to be non-sanctioned bouts, So when I first started fighting back in 1998, there was no really sanctioned bouts, you know what I mean? Who had a commission? Nobody. So like a lot of those early bouts, I think they had me like being my first fight, I think, on record is in Japan, I think, or something. I was like, I wasn't 0-0, and they go, hey, you go to Japan. I had to win like 10 fights before that. So there's just a lot of fights that are on there. But
wow.
It's just funny, growing up, not really growing up. The sport was so young back then. The sport's grown up quite a bit.
It's crazy. Like, how do you feel about the growth of like the sport, Chris? It must be crazy to be one of like the pioneers and it's all small and kind of like an underground sport in a way. Now it's all mainstream. What do you think about that?
It's amazing how the sport has changed, and not only that, the public perception of the sport has changed. I remember back in the 90s, if you're fighting, I remember going to Japan in like 1999, having some fights there. People, you tell them what you're doing, like you're gonna go fight in a cage or a ring, or they just kind of look at you like, grab their kids and kind of take 2 steps farther away. Like I don't know, it's just the way people thought of it then was totally different. It's good to see that it's getting more mainstream recognition, more and more every day, I would say. So that it's been very good in that aspect. I mean, plus just to see the evolution of the sport. I mean, I started, when I first started training, I think the first UFC had happened about 4.5 years before that. So the sport was still in its infancy, and just, have guys you say, who you're going to fight? Oh, he's a good kickboxer, or he's a good grappler, or he's a good jiu-jitsu, but there was nobody who was doing good at multiple things. Now everybody's good at everything. You have to be good at everything. That wasn't the case back then. So it was just, as we were growing as fighters, the sport was evolving very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy how like guys, they used to come in with one discipline and, that was like their thing. And it was like kickboxer versus grappler. And now like guys are just training mixed martial arts from the start and they just coming in so well rounded. It's crazy. And what you said about like the growth, like I've been into it for like forever before it was like popular. I got some training under my belt, but by no means am I a fighter, but,
nice.
I do love the sport. And like you said, like, I would try to talk to people about it back in the day and they would have no idea what I'm talking about. They wouldn't know what an arm bar is. They wouldn't know like any of these fighters, and Pride Fighting Championships and everything. And, it's beautiful, like, what it's become now. It's just absolutely crazy. But
yeah, my favorite thing was always when people would go, is that Royce Gracie still whooping everybody? And they said they are, Royce. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's so funny. And people used to view it as so crazy. Now it's like viewed as like, just like an art in a way, I know like the actress Meryl Streep was just like on some awards show and she was kind of, she was kind of putting it down MMA and it's like, she don't know what she's talking about, but that's okay.
She's getting beat up in the media a lot for that, so I'm happy.
Yeah, kind of ignorant comments, but anyway, Chris.
Well, here's the thing that really bothers me about that with her comment is the fact that first of all, I'm pretty sure she doesn't know a lot about the sport. Maybe if you're saying that back in the year 2002 when there's a lot more. Okay, but she doesn't know a lot about the sport. But here's the thing that gets me about it is she's talking about human decency and how to treat people. Roman Polanski was a known, he raped a 13-year-old, had to flee the country. Now, when he gets an award, he stands up and applauds. So where's the human decency?
Good point.
He's your friend, I get it, but he's still a rapist. So what do you, if it's in your group of the things that you find important, then you're a different higher class. I don't know. She just really put a class distinction there, how her and her people are better than the common person who actually does enjoy watching, the mixed martial arts. So it just kind of really let her, she's an elitist, and that's the way I interpret what she said. So. Yeah,
I'm with you, Chris. I just think, she's just like really uneducated on the sport and like what's involved with it and what it takes to be like an elite fighter, or just like get in there. It's definitely, it's an art, but some people just see like the outside, like the brutality of it, and they don't get it. Like, oh, why would you do that? Well, it's like a test of like will. Some people want to test themselves, and I love the sport, and it was they were kind of ignorant statements.
I could tell you, I played sports my whole life, and football, baseball, basketball, everything, and, there's definitely the good thing about this. It takes everything in your power and ability and complete 100% dedication to be good at this. And like you're saying, this is an art form when you have, multiple different types of disciplines involved. You can't be a boxer. You can't be a kickboxer. You have to be a boxer, wrestler, grappler, jiu-jitsu. You have to kind of know how to do everything. And you don't get a lot of punks in there because there's a lot of, discipline, hard work. And I mean, just the, I would say, from all the sports I played, it takes more of your complete and total life, and dedication. So lots of the people in there, you're not getting too many idiots like I think you have in other sports or even just other professions in general. I think most people there are very hard work. You have to be hard working, first of all. I mean, just, well studied, because there's a lot of study and discipline when it comes to being involved with something like this. So I understand how people have the misconceptions somewhat, but if you really look into it, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the personalities and like guys come from like all walks of life too, like Rich Franklin was a guy, like he was like a math teacher, and people like wouldn't expect that. Yeah. But people view it from the outside like, oh, cage fighting, like these guys are like Neanderthals, and it's just like basically like ignorance or refusal to like learn about the sport. But
sure.
Chris, I got a question for you. So, I know you probably answered this a million times, but like, how did you even get involved into MMA? And was it like the traditional, were you like bullied growing up, or did you want to test yourself?
Well, I would say more than anything, it was the fact that I was a competitive wrestler a lot of my life. Like I said, I played a lot of different sports, but the one I liked the most, when I was in school and everything, was wrestling. And they're very similar work ethic, one-on-one, you and one of the person out there. So I really enjoyed that. And then when I, first started hearing about this, one of the guys I knew from wrestling was like, hey, I'm doing this stuff. And he called it shoot fighting. I was like, shoot fighting, what is that? And then he said, well, it's like wrestling, but you can do like choke holds and arm bars. And you can also do like kickboxing. You can punch and kick. So I was like, okay, I'll go there. It just immediately, when I went to the gym, these were some, older people than me, and I was immediately, I would say, better than most of them. I was pretty good right away. My wrestling background, I worked real hard, and so immediately I was beating a lot of these guys. And, I really liked it when I started, I was winning. And then I went and watched a fight that they put on, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is something I'd like to compete in. And then I remember we had a guy named Jason Gotze who was really doing well over in Pancrase there over in Japan. So I was like, man, I want to go fight Japan. So I started seeing all these things, and I just started, I started doing things where I like training twice a day. When you start doing things like that, you get better a lot quicker. But it was just something, I just really enjoyed the competition. I enjoyed the fact of being able to go in there and just, succeeding in something is a lot of fun. But I mean, people don't really understand when you find out you have a fight and you really say, okay, I've got 2 months to train for this fight. And you do everything you can for 2 months, as a goal-oriented person that builds up, okay, I got to do this, that, I got to do this. And there's that but one day when you're going to test it, you're going to win or you're going to lose. And when you go there and work real hard and you achieve that goal, man, it's just such a good feeling, such a release. of pressure, and endorphins make you so happy. I mean, it's like usually a lot of times when you set a goal, there's not like a day when you like, I want to eat better, I want to be a better person, whatever. There's no one day when you get to test that and either you're successful and it's great, or when you're not successful, man, it's a painful
low,
feeling,
right?
But it's a very low, but at the same time, you appreciate the high a little bit more. So it makes you really want to, I gotta do this again, and I gotta get that feeling of, success and, just a very, satisfaction, and the satisfaction that brings is so high. I mean, it's amazing how exciting and how happy that the victories can make you. I mean, you'll be on like a different plane of happiness for, it's funny, like the first day you're just, it doesn't even feel real sometimes. And then,
Cloud 9, huh?
Throughout like the next week, the high is like still going on for like the next week. And then it kind of, it goes down a little bit, but it's still kind of there, and then it kind of goes, and eventually it fades away, and then you need to do it again. So
yeah, it's I have some understanding of it, like just from like my training and stuff. It's like it's like such a primal form of like competition, and like you said, like it's all on your back. Like winning or losing is like all on you. You're in that cage, and the hard work you put in is gonna like show itself or not. So. But part of the highs, Chris, is that part of like the addiction, like to want to go in there and feel that like rush?
100%. I mean, very much so. When people, I know why a lot of the fighters, they have trouble leaving the sport. I mean, first of all, the main reason is financial. A lot of fighters, they tend to not be good with their money. So at the end of the day, they need more money. But the other one, like for example, BJ Penn, I imagine, I think he's probably been good with his money, but he's getting ready to fight here. So what is motivating him? I imagine it's, that
just that fighter's heart, right?
That feeling, that rush, and they just, this is what you're here to do. You put everything in, you can work towards it, and I want to go out there and test myself again. Keep testing yourself, and that if you can like bottle up that feeling of elation for the week after a fight, and you could put that in pill form, you could. Not like, heroin, marijuana, all those stuff would be gone because people would be buying this pill,
That's
so
funny.
I don't know, maybe heroin is like that. I don't know. I've never done, so maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Regardless, it's a very addictive feeling. So a lot of fighters, after they've had a taste of it, it's hard to let go of that.
Yeah, I'm a big BJ Penn fan. I wish him well. He's fighting Yair Rodriguez, and that kid's like, he's pretty nasty. But BJ's just like a throwback. He's a fighter's fighter, just like you, Chris. I always viewed you as just like a fighter's fighter.
Thank
man.
You.
So exciting to watch. Chris, so you have a boxing background, wrestling, and you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right?
Actually, that's not really true. I've been given a title of black belt for no-gi stuff. So the jiu-jitsu guys I train with said, here, use a no-gi, you're a no-gi black belt. But I mean, I've never really formally been through the belt system with the gi and whatnot.
Okay.
And I've trained it a little bit, but not really. I don't own a gi. I was always of the belief that I fight, and there's no gi in the fight. I don't want to really train like that, because one of the reasons was, I'm not like a lot of the fighters who this is all their life is consistent of. I've almost the whole time I've been on the fire department, pretty much the whole time I fought. And I had 4 kids, so I was fairly busy. I didn't have time to like, okay, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu class. I mean, it was what it was. I would have liked to went to jiu-jitsu. It was like I didn't have time. I was training for fights. I was helping my people who helped me train for fights. I helped them get ready for fights. And there's only so many hours in my day. I was working 50 hours a week at the fire department trying to raise kids. I was like, I don't want to have time to go, do an art that really isn't going to translate over to me fully, I don't think. I mean, I think jiu-jitsu is very good and does translate over, but, when I only have, let's say, 4 hours in a day to train, I would rather do things that are going to be 100% applicable as something that's going to be not as applicable. So that's how it worked out.
Yeah, so like straight BJJ, obviously you don't have punches and kicks involved, so there is a difference. Like there's some straight BJJ guys that went in and they didn't do so well, like Marcelo Garcia, but like Damian Maia adapted, perfectly. So I can see what you're saying, how you did no-gi grappling and you wanted to mimic, situations like an actual MMA fight, like without a gi. which is smart.
Oh, exactly. You know, I didn't want. I mean, because like I said, I've done both, and there's just it's a much slower pace when you use the gi, because somebody, when you're trying to move your leg, they can just grab your pant leg and hold it there. I'm like, well, I can't do that in a fight. So if I learn this and I grab your pant leg and you can't do it, well, then a fight, I'm going to have a false confidence that I can't do anymore. So I never really wanted to train like that when I had limited time to be able to do what I wanted. I mean, like you said, Damian Maia, he's I would say one of the exceptions. I wouldn't say one of the norms. All the jiu-jitsu guys tend to be very good at submission, but they kind of tend to struggle on other aspects. You know, it seems like they're not quite as good at stand-up or whatnot. Now, you have, one of the few guys who I think was very good at both is what we're talking about, BJ Penn right here. He was really kind of good at a little bit of everything. So, he's pretty good all over.
So, Chris, what do you think is the most effective martial art to have under your belt? Like you said that you had an edge because you know how to wrestle. Would you say wrestling or striking?
You know what? It's so weird. I mean, the sport is, still evolving, I would say, but the way it's evolving, it's where you have to know grappling and jiu-jitsu or you will never make it, and you have to know some wrestling as well. But it's getting to be more and more of like a stand-up based art, because it seems like at one point it was just about the ground, and people had to be good at the ground, or they'd get taken down and submitted. And then it became more, well, when you could kind of stop that, and then you had like the good wrestlers who were able to dominate because they wouldn't get taken down. They kind of learn how to box a little bit, but it just kind of keeps moving right now. It seems like everybody is really so good at stopping takedowns in the cage or movement. It becomes a little bit more about a stand-up. So it's so hard to really say what the best discipline. As a base, I would say you definitely need some form of wrestling with at least an amount of grappling knowledge and not get submitted, and some form of kickboxing. So it's very difficult to really classify those in any order. But because here's the thing, if you're not good at any one of those, you're going to get beat a lot. They're going to find that weakness.
They're going to exploit it.
Beat you. So you kind of, so you have to know, I would say all three of those, that's the bare minimum. That's not adding any, boxing or Muay Thai with the elbows. That's just the bare minimum. You have to know how to not get taken down much, or if you are on top or even on bottom, how to not get submitted, and you have to know how to strike. So there's it's everything.
Yeah, Chuck Liddell was real great at that. Not getting taken down. If he did, he'd just get right back up and keep it in his world. Very cool.
Well, Chuck was very fortunate. For some reason, I never really understood why, but they didn't really focus on how good of a wrestler he was. I mean, that was the thing. Chuck could knock you out, but people couldn't get him down the ground some guys who are really good at knocking guys out get taken down and they get held down and stay in a bad position. Chuck was beautiful at not getting taken down, and then he's going to hit you harder than anybody else. I mean, he's a guy who could be backing up and hit you and still knock people out.
Still knock you out.
So, heavy-handed guy who can wrestle. Man, that's probably one of the
scary
guys to fight. Yeah, that's why he was a champ for so long.
Yeah, Chuck was the man. So Chris, as far as you, I said this a few times, you're definitely one of the most exciting guys to ever step in there. And, what do you attribute that to? Oh, you're welcome.
Well, I attribute it to a couple things. One of them was, I personally think this is just, fortunate for how you're born. I have a very good chin. I've never been able to be knocked out. I've been knocked down a few times, but I always recovered, never been knocked out. So that gave me the ability to say, I'm going to go out here and, I'm going to try and hit this guy as hard as I can. If he hits me, that's fine. I'm willing to give one to take one and to trade sometimes, so, but that, and then, I had my mentality was, I remember I lost that, split decision to Matt Sayre. That was one of the few fights ever where I was like, I just want to win this fight. I don't care if it's a boring fight. I don't care. I'm just going to try and win. And when I lost that split decision, he got a lot more money than me in a title fight and everything. I was
that was the finale, right? The tough finale.
Yep. Yeah. So his next fight, he got to fight St. Pierre. He knocked him out, won the title, which is funny because I love Matt Sayre, great guy. Still like him to this day. We whenever we see each other, we have a good time. So I was happy for him, but I was devastated. So I kind of got in my mindset like I'm never going to try and win a decision again, no matter what. If I go the distance, I feel like I lost. So my job isn't to go out there and hope that 3 people who, I might be good or might be bad, for them to give me the nod to say I win. My job is to go out there and try and take this person out. And if not, I at least want everybody in the crowd to go, wow, that was awesome. I wanted everybody to say, if they saw there was a pay-per-view card and they go, well, Chris Lytle's on it, I'm going to rent this one because I at least know there'll be a couple good fights.
It's going to be a fight, yeah.
If nothing else, there'll be at least one good fight that I'm like, hey, I'm glad I got that. That was my goal, is to make everybody be like, I got to see this guy fight. I don't care if he's fighting first on the card, last, when he's fighting, but I'm going to watch a fight. Yeah. And that was kind of my thought, was I want to go out there, do that, and I want all the fighters to know too that I don't want to fight this guy. I want them to think, man, this guy, I'm not going to knock him out. I'm not going to submit him. We're going to bang. It's going to be a tough fight, and maybe I'll win, or maybe or I might get knocked out or submitted. That's kind of my thought, is I want the fighters to respect me and really not want to fight me, and I want the fans to be like, I got to watch this guy.
Yeah. I think, fighting with that mentality, Chris, like to finish, you're never like a loser, even if you lose, because like the fans really appreciate that, I know I did.
Well, and what the UFC really started, I appreciate it. Well, no, it really helped out when the UFC started doing things like this. People don't understand how much like importance there is on winning based on, that's what your pay's coming from. You're going to get twice as much. And I think I lost about maybe 40 split decisions in the UFC, maybe 5 total. I can't remember, but regardless, I remember, when you lose a split decision, that, because that one judge, extra judge thought you didn't win, you might get half your paycheck. You might be the difference between getting, $30,000 and $60,000, maybe $100,000. It just depends, but that's pretty tough. So it really helped out when the UFC started coming up with their bonus system, and they would say, hey, if you go out there and you lay it on the line, you're probably going to get rewarded. So I always had this great confidence on, I'm just going to go out there, and that takes that whole, financial aspect out of it. I never worried about that, because I was like, hey, even if I go out there and I lose, the UFC is going to say, Chris, you laid it on the line. Here you go. We're going to compensate you for how you fought. And that's really what you need to do, I think. And that's the bothersome thing to me in a way nowadays. The purses have gotten a lot higher, and there's a lot more on the line. So whenever you have somebody maybe trying to win the title, or the worst of all time is a title elimination fight. So whoever wins this fight gets a shot at the title. Those fights are always terrible because the guys are afraid to lose. Nobody's going out there and going for it. They're not trying to throw a caution in the wind, knock the guy out. It might happen, but usually those fights are kind of boring because you just get the guy who's trying to figure out how he has to win. I can out-jab this guy. I can try and take him down and hold him down, whatever it takes. They're not really going out there with the, kill or be killed attitude.
Finish.
How do I manage this fight and squeak out the victory and go the next round? Because a lot of their pay is based on that and their rankings, and it sucks. But that's why I would love to see the commissions get together and make it more of like a pride-style scoring system where they say, hey, who's being more aggressive? Who's going for the finish? Who's coming off? You're not. Who's out-jabbing the guy? Because
penalties for stalling.
I want fights that are exciting. Pardon me?
No, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like penalties for like stalling. Remember they had like the red cards and the yellow cards?
Oh, yeah.
The yellow cards.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just hanging on and not trying to do anything, that, I love that idea, because not only with the yellow card, not only was that like, hey, you're losing points, hey, I think you're losing money too. So the fighters don't want to
that motivates people.
Money. Oh, no. Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it did. So, I love that system. I wish we could kind of implement a little bit more of that, because here's another problem I have with how they score. The 10-point must system is, I understand for boxing when you have a 12-round fight or something, but when you have a 3-round fight, I don't like that. You have a guy who, dominates one round, almost knocks the guy out, and then you have a guy who 2 close rounds, and you never know what they're going to say, and they might give the 2 close rounds to one guy who I don't think won the fight, but he did on the 10-point must. I think they need to start learning how to give more 10-8 rounds or 10-7, or make it a little bit fairer compared to if somebody barely wins a round, that's a 10-9. If you dominate the round, it shouldn't be a 10-9. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Some of the scoring, Chris, like I watch some of these fights and it's crazy. Like I'm sitting there like, how did they score it that way? How did they give it to this one guy? It's just insane. I think, also like the judges, they just have to be a little more educated, you know, like on the sport. I remember like a few years ago, it was real bad. I don't know if the judges had just like boxing backgrounds and they went by that, but it was nuts, man. I don't really want to drop names on fights and like call, results out.
I could think of some real recently, man, but
me too.
Anyway, I mean, recent, there's been a lot of them, but I mean, regardless, I mean, what I would like to see is more, retired fighters maybe becoming judges, because I think they would have a much better understanding of what's going on. I mean, I don't want, somebody who's, in their mid-50s who's never been in a fight in their life. Well, this is what's going on. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what it is, but I would prefer to see people who have more of an intimate knowledge of what's going on out there. I think they're going to give a fair account of what's happening. So.
No, I think that's a great idea, Chris, actually. Somebody who knows what's going on, they'll judge it properly. They see the little intricacy, like aggression should count for something, pushing the pace, so many things. And it's weird because like with the scoring, I don't really think, fighters get a lot of like, points for like you get points for getting a takedown, but what about stuffing it? Like, do they really take that into consideration?
I mean, here's another weird thing is this is totally dependent on who's judging that night. I mean, sometimes, especially when you get a split decision, I mean, what that tells me is, if we'd have fought, maybe the next week, maybe I would have won that split decision. Maybe he would have won. You're totally dependent on the judge. And it would be nice, in a way almost, if you knew how a judge was thinking and you could be like, okay, I'm going to set up my fight based on this because this person's judging. I'm going to try and take him down. I'm going to try and hit him. You really don't know what they're looking for. Are they looking for the aggressor or are they looking for the guy who's, throwing a lot of kicks and punches and barely hitting them, but you'll have certain fights where that happens. You'll get like a guy who's trying to just, get a lot of points. You get the other guy who's hitting harder. You just never really know who that judge is really,
favoring,
who they're favoring, So, what else I'd like to see? I don't understand why they don't do this in boxing. I think it'd be good to do it in MMA as well. I don't know why we have never went to this, but how about after each round they tally the scores and they make them public? Okay, you lost that round. What? Okay, well now you got to know what you do. So then round two, okay, now you lost that one. I mean, in between rounds, they turn in who won. And then, the score. I mean, it'd be like having a basketball game, and at the end of the game, nobody knows the score, and they shoot a three-pointer and we win. No, you lost by 8. Oh, well, I didn't know the score. How do you know the score? Why would you do it like this? Because what you're going to get if people know the score, what's going to happen if they know I'm down 2 rounds to none? I got to knock this guy out.
You're going to step it up.
Or if it's 1 round apiece, you're gonna, whoever wins that round wins. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. I'm just not sure why we've adopted this whole, boxing mentality, which, I mean, where you don't show the scores. I think that'd be very interesting if we could kind of work it out the other way.
That's an interesting idea also. I don't know. I just think probably like the sport is just like so like quote like new, is probably still evolving. Those are some great ideas though. A little bit off topic of the scoring, but so Chris, like with fighting, if you can give some insight, do you think it's a more mental thing or is it a physical thing? Like to win?
I mean, obviously it's both, but the mental I think is probably a bigger aspect. But I mean, it's difficult. You have to have some physical natural ability. I mean, that's just, you can't not have that and still be that successful. But I mean, you have a lot of guys with physical ability who aren't successful, and you have, it's not always just the most physically talented guy. So the mental aspect, I think, has to, at that level, you're getting everybody who's pretty physically athletic. So at that point, I think it's mainly mental. So, and that's just where you come into, discipline, work ethic, and mental toughness. I mean, it's funny. You would be surprised at how many of the other people, I would say, aren't quite as mentally tough as you might think. I mean, some of them might have got by with this other, aspects. They might be very, physically gifted, and they, might be able to hit really hard, and they might have landed some good punches, and they might have done some things. But I mean, there's sometimes when push comes to shove, and they get in there, and the fight gets tough, they're not tough, and they lose those fights. I mean, kill me. Oh yeah, it always killed me. I mean, not to call anybody out here, but I'm going to. Like what really bothered me on one of those fights was I remember Brock Lesnar's fighting Shane Carwin for the title, I think. And I remember Shane Carwin is like 11-0 with 11 first round stoppages. So I'm like, okay, right there. Shane doesn't know how to fight. I mean, I'm not gonna. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking. I mean, the guy is a great guy. He's very athletic and he can hit hard. I get that, but if you've never been past the first round, in my opinion, you don't really understand the sport yet. There's just a different level, like knowing how to pace yourself, knowing what's going on, and how to dig deep and win a fight when you need to. He just didn't understand that. He doesn't understand that aspect. He didn't understand that. Go up there and go 110% and knock the guy out. But if you don't do that, then what do you do? So, and then on the other side, you had Brock Lesnar, who he does know how to condition himself, and he'd been in rounds before, but. I mean, to be honest with you, what makes him so good was he's just physically so big and strong. He can hit super hard, and he's a great wrestler. I get that, but I mean, I think Brock has a little bit, quite a bit of quit in it. If push comes to shove and he's getting hit, he balls up and just doesn't want to get hit. So, I mean, my thought about that whole thing was you got two guys here fighting for the biggest title in the world right now, and I don't think they're great, complete mixed martial artists. They're the best guys in the world right now because they're so big and they hit so hard and they're strong and they're athletic. But I don't know about that mental aspect, which I think is what has led those two guys to not really be at the top level anymore. I think physicality worked to a certain extent, but I think now you've got people who are just kind of surpass them with the other aspects of like mental toughness. And that's why I think you typically. Like especially at heavyweight, like good wrestlers tend to be pretty darn good because that's a lot of mental toughness right there. That's what I think the best thing about wrestling has brought is everybody. If you're like a high level wrestler, you tend to be pretty mentally tough. That's a very disciplined, very very tough sport, and it translates over very well.
Yeah, I used to wrestle in high school, and I agree with you. Like, it was like some of the toughest conditioning, and besides like mixed martial arts, and yeah, mental toughness for sure is like associated with wrestlers, and like with Brock too. Like, I agree with you. I just think like there was like rumors that like he wasn't really allowing people to hit him like in training. Like, I don't know how much truth there is with true. That, but
I mean, I know people who have trained with him, and that was the word there too. They said if you even came near punching, kicking, I mean their camp was whoa. What are you doing? Like, well, we're sparring. No. I mean, so I'm like, if you don't at least get, in my opinion, that was Ronda Rousey's big problem there. Too. I don't know how hard her sparring was because the fight isn't really the hard part. It should be the practice before that leads up to it. You have to take some hits. You don't go in there and bang and kill each other in sparring. You're not supposed to do that. However, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go in there and spar people, and you're getting tired and they throw a new guy in. You get tired and they throw another guy in, and you're working on how to deal with that tiredness and getting used to taking some hits and being able to roll with the punches and move. She looked like she was great at hitting the mids, great at hitting the bag, which is all offensive. But you learn how to fight when you spar. You learn how to not get hit, and to move, and how to just. Even when, like, if you are getting hit, you learn how to back away, bring the other person to you where you could get them in close to a clinch. I mean, there's just a lot of different aspects that I feel like he didn't quite have there. And I think that is, you have to actually spar. I don't know what else to say.
It was kind of sad to watch because, I mean, she was just at the top of the sport, and like her fall from grace is crazy. And I felt bad for her, and the amount of like crap she's getting on the internet, like people just attacking her. And I think part of that has to do with I don't know, like she definitely came off as cocky and she was like abrasive, and I think you're gonna, she dished it out and now she's getting it back and it's brutal.
Well, what I think a lot of that was, her, a little bit of her attitude about the whole thing. She, at least being on a reality show, she's flipping people off the whole time, won't shake hands after the fight. That's kind of unheard of. Usually, bad sportsmanship, exactly. Now, the problem was, I think she was, very, very good, obviously, great, but I think she was like one of the first women really in the UFC, so you talk about the sport growing and whatever. I think you've seen the women's division just totally, in a way, surpass her very quickly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the problem has been she was, and probably still is one of the greatest on the ground there is. Great judo, obviously, great at arm bars, but, I mean, she's not that great of a stand-up fighter. And all of a sudden these people are going, hey, I'm just going to keep her on my feet, and then now you're an average fighter. So the sport has just kind of, once again, we just kept talking about, kept growing and growing. The women's division isn't very old, but I think it's grown very fast, and I think she's been surpassed. And the problem is she still has this mentality that, she believed the hype. She drank the Kool-Aid about you're the best women's fighter in the world, and not only that, you could beat a lot of men. That's how good you are. And I was thinking the whole time people would say that, I was like, you people are out of your mind. I mean,
that was insane.
I know. I'm like, what do you don't understand? I mean, it's just different, I mean, I don't understand who thought that, but I mean, but the point is she believed that, and now that's kind of how trying to rationalize that wasn't really the truth when she believed it is very, very difficult for her. So I think she's mentally, I don't think she'll ever fight again. I think it's over for her.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
It's a shame, too. Like you're saying, I don't know. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I don't dislike her anyway. And like you said, you feel bad for her because she was kind of thrust into this position, and she believed what she was told. She bought in, and now she figures out that really was not and is not the case, and that's devastating to her. So I feel very bad for her in that situation.
Yeah, it must be like I was trying to put myself in her shoes, like mentally, and it's like if you have this image of yourself, like how you said, she had all these people feeding these things to her. You can drop boxers in sparring, like all this crazy talk, like world class boxers, and you have this self image of yourself, and then you get destroyed. It's like, what does that do to you, like mentally? Like the whole image of yourself is just like shattered. Your confidence must be shot. And then the Amanda Nunes fight, like it looked like, I don't know. Did you see the fight?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I saw that fight, it almost looked like she had flashbacks of the Holm, not like she just like froze up. Like as soon as she got clipped, the one good punch, she just completely froze up. And just got annihilated.
After 10 seconds into the fight, it was over. After the first 10 seconds, you're right. And it was just like hands were kind of out front, but it's just like she was like almost on autopilot, And once again, I kind of equate that to, not doing hard enough sparring, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it just seemed like right then and there, she flashed back and didn't really know what to do at that point, which is, what I would think instead of, the whole time, instead of working on how to be a better boxer, that's if you've been that good at judo and that good at submissions, you don't have to be great at everything. You have to be good enough to get in there, but you need to work on, okay, if I get clipped, how do I back up? How do I draw that person into where I can get the takedown? Or even if I have to pull guard, something. I mean, you got to work on other aspects instead of I'm going to match this person boxing, when that's just a horrible idea. So,
yeah, it was like when she fought Holly Holm, it was this thing where like she's going to go in there and like just stand and trade with Holm, like match her skill for skill standing. That was crazy to me. Like I called that fight. I said, if she stands with Holly Holm, she's going to get like hurt. And, I agree with you. Like, I think she probably should work on defensive, boxing or defense or reaction and like take it to her world.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, with that fight, it's insane to think Holly Holm's been boxing for 10 years and Ron has really been training hard at it for 2. I mean, you're just not going to catch up at that level, you know? So for her to try and fight it like that was crazy. And then what does she do? She's 101 problem. She's stalking her. She's walking her down and trying to walk it. And Holly's a counterpuncher. So you're walking right into her strength and you're counterpunching, and then she's not there because she's moving. I mean, it's kind of, I think it's pretty basic knowledge when it comes to fighting that, if you're stalking somebody like that and they keep hitting and moving and you want to try and get them down, you quit following them. You kind of stay in the middle of the ring and you stand there and wait for them to come forward, because they have to move forward, and that's when you try to come and get your attack. You don't just keep walking forward. You're not gonna get them that way. Make them come to you a little bit. Back up a little bit. Once they engage, then they're closer to you. Guess what? I mean, it just. But I just don't understand because I maybe have done a lot of boxing and a lot of MMA that I learned that lesson pretty quick. It just seems amazing to me that she learned that lesson in her title fight. You know, it just seems like that should have already been in the toolbox. So.
Yeah, a lot of people are bashing her coach Edmond too, and it's like, who knows what's going on in that camp? And it's like, but I think, I mean, who am I to say? I think she needs to definitely change things up if she's to come back. I mean, she got to go train with somebody else and, you know, be honest, like an honest assessment of her stand-up skills, you know? But she might not even come back, like you said, right, Chris? It's just, that was brutal.
She'll never fight again. I don't think mentally she's going to be able to handle it. I mean, you know, because just coming to terms with what is going on, and, you know, she's still, I mean, think about that. I mean, how big she was built up, not only to her head, but everybody, the great assist and great effect. And then all of a sudden that fall from Grace is so, you know, devastating. I think she might be like, I don't even want to deal with this, man. I mean, it's depressing, you know. And here's the thing, going out there and trying to ever get back to where you were, or, I mean, that's a huge risk to take. And if you don't get there, then what? You know, then you're even more depressing. So I don't know. I think it's going to be, I don't personally think she'll ever fight again, but I don't know.
Yeah, the way, I don't know if you saw Dominic Cruz's post-fight, speech after he lost his belt to Cody Garbrandt. I was like so impressed with the way he took that loss. I mean, he just took it on the chin, took it like a man. He was honest. He just said that Cody was a better man that night. And in contrast to like Ronda, like she would go in hiding, you know, with her loss. And it's just, I was so impressed with Cruz. That's definitely like the mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, you know, and that's part of the problem here. I mean, it's easy to win. I mean, easy. Everybody's a good winner, you know. It shows a lot about you by how you lose. You know, I mean, are you going to whine and cry and blame people for what's going on, or not have a good? I mean, I don't know. I just think you learn a lot more about how a person is by how they lose than you do by how they win. So,
I agree with that, Chris.
That was very good of Dominic to be like that. And, you know, that fight kind of surprised me in a way because, you know, Dominic has been so elusive and so hard to figure out. I mean, Cody sure figured him out, man.
He did.
Yeah, and that was another scoring. That was another scoring that I totally disagreed with. One of the judges had that, I think, 48-47. I'm like, how do you get that out? I mean, he won the last round. That was it. He got killed that fight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I like Dominic, but I think he lost bad.
Before the fight, I mean, I had Dominic Cruz winning, Chris, and I'm watching the fight, and after the first round, I was like, uh-oh. This is not the same thing. Yeah, this is not going the way that I thought it would. And then Cody, he did his thing. It was a awesome performance. He definitely had Dom's number that fight. I was like, whoa.
Oh man. I mean, how many times did he knock him down? 3?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. There was one knockdown.
And that's what I mean with the. Go ahead.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. There was one knockdown. It looked like he was almost out. He hits the ground and Cody puts his arms out like to the ref, like, hey, he's out. And Cruz, he just comes back somehow. Like, and I was like, holy crap, like what is going on here?
Agreed. And like to my point way long time ago about the scoring, how does he knock him down that many times and on the one judge's card and then wins by 1 point? I mean, it's like that's every time he knocks him down, you didn't get a 10-8 in any of those rounds. I mean, I just that's crazy to me. I mean, basically, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, Cruz did win the last round, you know, because Cody didn't really do anything. But besides that, you could arguably give him another. I mean, I just don't understand how they could. You know, that scoring system to me is not right. How if somebody gets a knockdown, that doesn't count as anything. I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
Yeah, at no point, like, Cruz, that Cody was in danger of being finished, but, like, Dom, he got dropped so many times, it was insane. I never seen Dominic Cruz dominated like that. Like, it was wild to, like, watch.
No.
Totally crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, so I got another question for you. So, who's someone in your career that, like, you always wanted to fight, but it just never got, you know, it never materialized? Is there anyone out there?
Yeah, I was supposed to fight Carlos Condit twice.
Wow.
The first time I was supposed to fight him, I blew my ACL out and had to have my ACL replaced and my meniscus and this and that. So I was very disappointed about that one. And then the funny thing, we were supposed to fight again, and the funny thing about that is, I'm training, and a little over a month before the fight, tore my other meniscus, and I was like, geez. You know what? I was like, I don't care. I went to the doctor, and I was like, my knee's swollen. I need you to drain it. And he was like, well, you tore your meniscus. And I'm like, I don't think I did. And he was kind of like, yeah, you did. So I was like, all right, well, drain it, and I got to keep going. He's like, well, it'll just swell back, so we need to have surgery. And I was like, I can't have surgery. I'm fighting here in like a month. And he's like, okay, what we'll do is I checked it out. It's not a bad tear. We're just going to cut off probably 20% of it, and then, you'll take, a week off, and then you'll be able to train. I was like, okay, 1 week. So I remember a month and a day before my fight, I had surgery on my meniscus. They told me they're going to probably cut 20% out. Well, I woke up, and I found out they said we had to remove the whole thing. I was like, well, that's not good, is it?
Yeah.
Regardless, I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm still doing this fight because I really wanted that fight. I won like a couple. I was in a good position right there. I thought, whoever won that might have got a title fight. So I was ready to do it anyway. So about a week before I go to fight, they called me and told me that he'd hurt his knee and he couldn't do the fight. So I was like, you got to be kidding.
Damn.
So.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, what is it with us and knees? I was like, I don't really care. I'm doing it no matter what. But
that would have been an insane fight. I
know, really like that because he just high output. We were gonna, I felt like stand there and trade, and it would have been a lot of fun to watch. I thought there's another one. I thought no matter what happens here, there's definitely going to be a fight tonight, right, for somebody.
It would have been like I see that fight, with you and Condit would have been like a Lawler Condit, just very similar. Like Condit is just. He's exciting also. He comes forward, he like fights.
Exactly. Well, I mean, especially towards the end of my career, I was telling the UFC a lot of times, like opponents I would like to fight like that, and I always was saying I want guys who are gonna, be exciting and come try and take me out. That's what I want.
So Chris, you were you a full-time fighter while, being a professional MMA fighter at the highest level? Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I've been on the fire department almost 16 years now. So yeah, pretty much most of my career I was on the fire department. That was the tough aspect of my life. For many years I was working 56 hours a week at the fire department, and like I said, trying to have kids. So I had 4 kids. So the hard part for me was really just having time to do anything besides train. I mean, that's all my life was. It was. Training for fights, spending time at the fire department, and trying to spend time with my kids. I mean, people would ask me, what else do I like to do? Do you like to go hunting, Chris? I was like, I've never been hunting in my life. Like, do you like to go golf? I don't do golf. Do you go fishing? I never fish. I mean, what do you do? This is it. I mean,
you like to punch faces.
Yeah, but I realized really quick there's 24 hours in a day, and this is what I want to do. I had to really categorize my life of what I wanted, I had a little hierarchy. This was it, A, B, C, D, and E, and usually there was no time for a lot of them because the first 3 took all my time, so that was just kind of what I did. And, I knew that there was, extended period that I could do that. And I mean, that kind of was what led to me quitting fighting. Really, I think I was still fighting very well. I won 5 out of my last 6 fights, but I was the one thing that was lacking a lot was my family time, my kids. I wasn't really being, I didn't think a good dad, so I figured it was, it was time, that time with my kids was never going to come back. It was never going to be able to be there if I didn't stop it right then. So I did just kind of retire from the fighting aspect of it.
I think it's incredible, Chris, that you reached like the heights that you did in MMA while being a full-time firefighter and a family man. That just is like a testament to like your will and your skill, just it's incredible. Chris, I only have a few more questions for you. You've been so gracious with your time. What's the most fun fight you've had, and which one was the toughest?
My most fun fight. Man, I had a lot of really fun fights, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember probably one of my most fun that I can think of was probably the first one when I fought Robbie Lawler back in, I think, that was a long time ago, but I think it was UFC 45. But I mean, the fun thing about that was I remember, I was not supposed to win that one. I remember I was like a 9 one of the polling thing I saw, like 90% of the people said he was going to win. They didn't know who I was. Everybody thought he was going to knock me out real quick. I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. That's what people think. But I mean, just being in there in the moment. I remember when we start hitting each other, boom, and he's stepping back and he's clapping, and then it's just all that right there. Just really let me know that was one of the fights where I didn't really care, who was watching or what was going on. I would want to do that. If it was just me and him and nobody else there, we would have done the exact same thing, and it was just, and it was just a matter of me and him going, I'm tougher than you are, and him going, no, I'm tougher than you. I'm like, well, let's do it. Let's see who's the toughest guy out here. Let's see. You're not going to take me out. I don't care what people think, how strong you are and how hard you can hit. I'm going to take you. And it was just a good back and forth fight that, I think I really enjoyed that type of fight when, we had that same mindset. And then in addition to that, I think, everybody around us really, really enjoyed the fight as well. So, the toughest fight, man, let me think. As far as just like, physically tough, you think?
Yeah, physically, or you could drop a physical and a mental one, where you're like, whoa, this guy's like, he's a monster, like, I'm having a hard time.
Well, physically, let me think. I mean, probably I'd have to say for that one, this is my fight versus, Koscheck. I remember when I was fighting that one, I had a lot of game plans and different things I was going to do. I trained a lot, if I'm on bottom, how to move, but, when I wasn't really used to guys, usually if you get them in, half guard, usually that's a decent position, but he had such a good wrestling base half guard. He wanted to be in there. He would just, get a good wide base and throw these little elbows, not big elbows. He'd try and push off my face and barely hit me with an elbow.
Just to score, right?
And then just to score, but in addition to that, it cut me open. And I bled for, at one point, it was one of the top 5 bloodiest fights in the UFC. So I was bleeding all over the place and trying just to, because when you get that, then it becomes a different mentality. It's, you're not, I was never worried about myself, but I'm trying to think, I can't let them stop the fight. If I got to move, I got to try and cover up my head a little bit to make it not look as bad. And then I remember, standing up at the third round, I'm cut open and I look over and he's just covered in blood. I'm thinking, damn it, that's all my blood. So that was a very tough one just because, his positioning, his wrestling ability, and his positioning was so good. Matter of fact, I really didn't even want to take that fight because I was like, he's going to try and hold me down. And I was wanting to fight guys who wanted to punch, and they're like, oh, no, he's been doing a lot of stand-up. And I was like, man, he ain't going to stand up with me. And I'm like, yeah,
right.
Okay. Well, he didn't. He tried to take me down. So, and then we got to stand up at the end. I was coming back a little bit. There wasn't enough time. So that was definitely a tough fight physically because just a guy who's that good of a wrestler with that good of hips and base and had a good game plan and still some elbows. That was a tough physical fight. But mentally, another mental tough one was probably the second time, not the first and second time I fought Matt and Sarah. Once again, we were on that reality show together. We were roommates. I still really like Matt, and I never. I want him to win his fights, but I didn't want to fight my friend, but this is that sport. You have to do it sometimes. So we had to go in there and bang and, don't like those kind when you don't, you don't want anything bad to, I never really want anything bad to happen to anybody I fought, but he was definitely one of my closer friends and guys I'd always want to see good things happen to.
And it's funny because you guys still went all out in there, which is awesome.
Yeah, especially the second time, it was funny because I was talking to him later. He's like, like the second time we fought, he's like, he was wanting to get back to the title hunt. And he said he felt like the only way to fight with me to do it was, if, I'd never been knocked out. So he's like, if I can knock Chris out, then I'll put me right up there for a title fight. And so he just said, I'm going to stand there and slug with him. So like, cool, he didn't tell me that beforehand, but afterwards when I heard that's what happened, I was like, well, cool, I like that, and he made it a very fun, entertaining fight.
For sure. That's funny. Chris, do you still keep up with MMA? And if you do, like, who are some of your favorite guys to watch right now?
I've been a big fan of watching Matt Brown fight quite a bit because he once again just puts it all out there. I was really excited when him and Cowboy fought because he's another guy who I love watching. So when those two I knew it was going to be, that's the fight I've been really looking forward to. And, you know, it was a good fight. You know, it was great. Pretty much just like I thought it'd be. So really enjoyed watching both of those guys quite a bit. Yeah, of course, I still follow the sport. I got some guys who I help train who are fighting right now. A guy named Andrew Holbrook I help out with, and he just won a split decision the other day against Jake Matthews in Australia, in that guy's hometown. So he's 2-1 now in the UFC. I think he's 12-1 overall.
Nice.
So he's got a real good future. Looking forward to watching him fight more, trying to help him out. And I also help out with Matt Mitrione, who's getting ready to fight Fedor. That's a huge fight. So
that's crazy.
A lot going on there. Yeah,
Mitrione, he definitely has a chance there. Like that's going to be a good fight. So Chris, you've been so gracious with your time again. In closing, Chris, do you have anything you want to say to the fans or anything you want to plug or promote where they can reach you?
Anybody wants to hit me up on Facebook, I always answer people. There's under Chris Lytle, obviously. My Twitter got all hacked, and I don't, you know, it was throwing out these porn things, and I had to close it down. I couldn't really get to work, so maybe I'll open it up again at some point. But I don't really do the Twitter thing that much. So Facebook would be the best way if anybody wants to get a hold of me. So, you know, just what else? I've been doing a lot right now with. Just got back from Connecticut. I go to different schools throughout the country sometimes and talk about anti-bullying and stuff. I wrote a children's book for that.
That's
been going doing that quite a bit, so it's been a lot of fun for me.
That's my home state. That's awesome.
Oh, really? You from Connecticut?
Yeah, I'm from Connecticut. I lived there. Right now I'm in Florida, but I was there
That's
prior
right.
to
You
Florida.
told me that. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah, since like 97.
Yeah, I was in like Middleton. I don't even know if you know where that is.
Yes, I do. Yep. So that's pretty cool. How do you like Connecticut and New England?
You know, I've been there a couple times. I really thought I liked Connecticut. I thought it was good. Where else? I mean, I've been obviously, you know, Boston, New York, and whatever, several different places. So, I've always had a good time when I went to New England. It's been good. You know, if it weren't for those darn Patriots, I'd probably come up there more often.
That's funny.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Oh man, Chris, those fans up there, like I don't follow football, but man, they're hardcore. Like Patriots fans, man. It's like good grief. Like, whoa, you know? God forbid you're a fan of any other team. You know, you have to like, fear for your life. You know, it's crazy.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm from Indianapolis where the Colts are, and they had some good battles for many years. So I'm sure they wouldn't like me, you know, representing my Indianapolis team. So. Yeah,
that's so funny. But Chris, that's going to wrap up the episode. And I just want to say, you know, personally, like it was an honor. I'm just such a huge fan of yours. And thank you for being on and sharing your time. And that's it. So that'll wrap up episode 40. If you have any little last words, feel free.
Hey, just thank you for letting me come on here and talk for a little bit, bud. It's been good talking with you, and talk to me anytime. Let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Chris, you have a great day. And then for the listeners, we'll catch you back with episode 41.